Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. 3 John 1, verse 11. One of the basic tenets of the Bible is that there is good and there is evil in the world. Sin and righteousness, wickedness and godliness. Christians are called to do good things and to stop doing evil things. Pretty basic, right? You'd think so. But it turns out that practically speaking, there is a lot of disagreement in this world about what is good and what is evil. Some people view living together before marriage to be a good thing. Others say it's a sin. Depending on who you talk to, abortion is described as the murder of a child or as an integral part of a woman's right to care for her own body. Some believe that same-sex marriage is an expression of love that doesn't hurt anybody, but others consider it an attack on family values and marriage. Not only is there disagreement on these types of issues, but the views are so opposite of each other that they cannot both be accepted or reconciled. They cannot both be right. This sort of cultural divide over morality is not a new thing. In the Old Testament, the prophet Isaiah bemoaned the fact that there was such confusion over right and wrong in Israel. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. Isaiah 5, 20 through 21. There has always been confusion over morality. So how do we decide what is good and what is evil? Well, Proverbs 21 verse 2 says that every way of a man is right in his own eyes. And Jeremiah 10 verse 23 says, I know, O Lord, that the way of man is not in himself, that it is not in man who walks to direct his steps. The debate over what is right and what is wrong will never end if we use our own wisdom to decide. Mankind is opinionated, biased, and we're often wrong. The only way to find the truth on these issues is to look to God for answers. He's the ultimate authority on morality, and what He says is the only view that matters. Jesus put it this way, the one who rejects me and does not receive my words has a judge. The word that I have spoken will judge him on the last day. John 12, verse 48. We are called to love all people, but we're also called to live and teach truth because it is the truth of Christ's word that will judge everyone on the final day of their life. It isn't loving for us to ignore sin for the sake of being politically correct or not offending people. This series of lessons seek to address some of the moral hot topics of today. The goal is to provide you, the student, with a clear understanding of what the Bible says about these issues because the Bible is the final voice of the subject of good and evil. And because if we love Christ, we must be prepared to follow His commands. As He said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. John 14, verse 15. Some of the Bible's teachings on these subjects go counter to the current cultural norms, and they may be considered unpopular or even hateful, but that shouldn't surprise us. Remember, Jesus and His followers were hated for their views 2,000 years ago. Jesus was crucified for His beliefs, and practices of His followers, well, they suffered greatly for their faith. Jesus warned them that it will always be this way. Those who follow Him will suffer with Him. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. Because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. John 15, 18 through 20. If we take a biblical worldview and follow Christ, then we're bound to suffer, and we're bound to be hated by some of those who don't follow the same path. But as Peter said, it's better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. If we know what the Bible says, then we can practice and proclaim those lifestyles that we know are good. The culture will change, but the Bible doesn't.